Hello, good people. On today's episode of the DOD45, we sit down with our friend Whit Hertford, theater director, writer, and actor in many movies that you have seen, including Jurassic Park and Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? Stop what you're doing and listen.
DOD45.
This is the DOD45 podcast, drawing over discussions, 45 minutes with a special guest. Welcome. I'm your host and resident artist, Tai of Art by Tai, and with my co-host, Adrienne Taiwali'i, we're having conversations with people who I admire and am inspired by. On this episode, I'll set a 45-minute timer, put my pen to the paper, and we'll learn about our guest through an interview-style discussion. So stay right here with us to experience some laughs and maybe even learn a thing or two.
DOD45.
All right, here we are back into the Utah studio. Been here for a couple of days. How you feeling about being here in Utah?
I feel fine.
Okay, good.
It's not making much of a difference to me. Well,
It used to, though. Kind of, no. Oh, well.
I'm grateful that all you socialites get to be with your friends. Other than that, it doesn't make a difference to me.
Well, on our show today, we're going to be talking with our friend Whit. Whit Hertford is his name.
Is it Hertford?
That's how I've always pronounced it. What do you suppose it is?
I don't know.
Well, Whit. See, the problem is I'm used to calling him Whitby, but he doesn't. I don't think he probably doesn't like that, and that's not his
Why?
name.
Why wouldn't they like that?
I don't know. It's not like if someone called you Adri, wouldn't that drive you nuts?
I don't know. If people have been calling me that my whole life, I'd be used to it.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't think he actually is called that. I think we just started calling him that because from our friend Joel. Well, anyway, our guest today is Whit Hertford. And every time I say Whit, I really struggle cutting off that B part, Whitby. But he is a friend of ours, and he's an actor and a theater, a playwright, a director. I've been going through a list of the movies that Whit's been in and the shows that he's in and the things he was in. It's pretty wild. There's a lot. Do you know all of the things that he's been in?
I wouldn't know. But I do know he's been producing a lot of like screenplays or maybe what do you call a screen of a play?
Screenwrite. Oh, no, I mean, sorry.
A
Playwright.
writing of,
Playwright.
yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. He's I can't remember the name of their theater group. It's called
Right. It's not right.
Riot Act. Yeah. Yeah, he's in things like, and these are a long time ago, but I mean, they are still part of his life. I'm sure he's kind of sick of hearing them, but he's a little Tully in Addams Family, the Dream Child, Jacob in the Nightmare on Elm Street 5. Have you seen that one? Or did you just, after you saw Nightmare on Elm Street 1, you just like, I'm never watching again, another one?
I watched up until the third one.
Well, he's in the original Jurassic Park. There's something funny that I read about that I'm going to ask him about there. He's in Glee. Did you ever watch Glee? I know. Now our daughter watches it.
I think I saw him on it when she was watching it, though.
He's in this other show, Raising Hope. Everyone loves that show, but I haven't watched it. But it's supposed to be really good. He plays Officer Ross. And then I didn't really realize it. Maybe I never even saw it, but he is in Full House. I think he tries to get a smooch off of Stephanie.
The old
Stephanie.
one or
Yeah.
the new one?
No, the original Full House. Yeah, and I want to ask him about this. He got a movie that came out in 2014. I think that was the last production, but I don't know. But I want to ask him about that. I'm happy to have him on. I've always liked him. We met Whit. Did we meet Whit through Joel?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Let's have a conversation with him and learn more about Whit. Let's take a quick break, though. Let's take a quick break and hear from some of our delightful sponsors, and then we'll be right back with Whit Hertford.
DOD45. Hot sauce.
Amplify the flavor of your favorite foods with Hob Sauce's award-winning flavors. Create your own 4-pack at hobsauces.com. Not only do they make dope hot sauce, they collaborate with dope artists for their labels and flavors, including myself, Atmosphere, Aesop Rock, Crayola, Rob Sonic, and so many more. We love Hob Sauce over here at DOD45 and damn near put it on everything we eat. We got extra bottles in the car, Adrienne has one in her purse, I have an emergency bottle in my backpack, and if you're ever running out, we always have a bottle available of the garlic turmeric, which I did the octopus label for, here at my gallery in Hannibal, Missouri. Hit it, Bobby.
Have sauce, have sauce. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Put it on your food. Hot sauce.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the world. My name is Tony, and I have a podcast, too. I know what you're saying. I already know. Okay, but I have a podcast, too. Just like you, just like your grandma, just like your grandma's neighbor. We all have podcasts, except mine is different. I'm different. I was born different. The Speaker Face podcast is fun. It will teach you probably nothing. You cannot smell it, and you definitely can taste it. Speaker Face podcast by me, AWOL1, and I talk to my friends, I talk to musicians, artists, all kinds of creative people, all kinds of human beings. I do like little songs and little freestyles and skits. And so after you're done listening to DOD45 with my man Tai, which is a very, 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 very interesting podcast that you should religiously watch and listen to. After you're done, check out speakerface.store for the Speakerface podcast. And you could also listen to it wherever other podcasts are podcasting. You know what I'm saying? So check it out, Speakerface podcast. Your life will be better. I don't promise. Speaker Face Podcast.
Here's a little story that must be told. Hey, we are stoked to be starting a relationship with Brim of the World and look forward to building on our partnership with them in the future. Listen, I almost never go without a hat, so hooking up with Brim of the World was a no-brainer. As far as your situation goes, you know your head is looking pretty chunt these days, and it's time to throw some headgear on there. And I'm not talking braces headgear, I'm talking about hats. And Bot World, aka Brim of the World, has a treasure trove of headwear to pick from, so check them out at brimoftheworld.com. And also check out their SCD collection. SCD is Seek, Conquer, Destroy, and it's their action sports brand. Seek wisdom to conquer all obstacles and destroy anything that tries to stand in your way for success. Also check out their Aliens Built Earth clothing line. Super dope clothing line. I rock their hoodies and shirts all the damn time. Aliens Built Earth was born with the notion and belief that aliens built Earth. You'll find some type of clothing or headwear from these cats on me at almost all times, and that was before DOD45 partnered with them. I don't see that changing anytime soon. Head over to brimoftheworld.com and start building your wardrobe now. And I just noticed they're offering free shipping in the US, so I mean, really, can you beat that? No, you cannot.
DOD45. I'm in, baby. What's up?
Hi.
Like Flynn.
How are you?
Wow, look at how fancy this is.
You're with the big time.
My stuff has like a grocery store plant that flowers that my friend gave. I look perfectly weird. I love it.
No, you look amazing. Do you want to know, how are you, by the way?
I'm good, pal. How are you guys?
Fantastic. It's lovely to see your face.
You too, dude. You guys.
You know what the danger is with having a refrigerator in your background? Is that I'm going to ask.
Is that I'm gonna ask.
What's in
We're
your
gonna make it
refrigerator?
sexy. You can still ask that, but we'll make this sexier.
It's like an episode of Cribs. You know, when they go through Cribs and they open up their refrigerator and it's like all perfectly.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I drink Hennessy all the time.
Mine is so many liquids. Mine is like kombucha, water, coffee, LaCroix, booze. It's just like, do I eat any solids? I don't think I do.
Well, you're not supposed to, I agree. I think these days.
I guess not.
I was thinking about you the other day. We drove past the Dutch store and I was like, oh, we should go in and get some Haschlag. Is that how you say it?
Kind of, yeah.
Hagelstock?
Yeah, Haschlag.
The Dutch store?
Yes.
IKEA?
No. But it reminded me of when we met you in Amsterdam and we went for pancakes with the sprinkles on top.
The most fun.
Those sprinkles are what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the little chocolate sprinkles.
Yeah, totally. We had a roommate when we lived in London, when we lived in a house with 7 other people.
Woo.
And he was from Holland, and every morning he would be like, this is my breakfast that I make every day. And it was like a piece of white bread with butter and then chocolate sprinkles.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
and I was like, what is this? And I was like, oh, it's the shit.
It's the best. That's what I used to eat all the time because my family owns that Dutch store in Utah.
Wait, where? I don't even know which one you're talking about.
It's across the street from a Beans and Brews on Second Highland.
Oh, vaguely. Okay, and so they own that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So thanks for joining us on the show today. It is really no joke. It's really fantastic to have you on here with us. So,
are we already recording? Is this the thing?
Yeah, that's how we start out. We start out with a little icebreaker, get to know you, and nice. And then we jump right in. But I do like to ask a few things before. Well, I already asked them. I asked how you were doing, and that's the most important. And you said,
I'm good, man. I really, you're catching me at a good point. Everything ebbs and flows, right? But this is like, we'll get into it, but there's some stuff that I've been waiting to gestate and then manifest and come to fruition for a bit. And they're kind of all happening at the same time. Awesome. So that's good. Yeah, but I wasn't ready for them. I wasn't ready for them before, and I realize that now. So I will say there's really good organizational material that's happened.
When you have something like that going on, like when you have an idea or you have a project or you have something that's kind of coming up, is it all internalized, and then once you have a conversation with someone publicly, then that's when it's for you, it starts to that means it's going to start manifesting?
Yeah, you're talking about like plays and theater work?
Yeah, or anything. Yeah, anything that, yeah.
You know what, dude? I do a really weird thing. I do a thing where, and I think you'll appreciate this. If I have a hunch, there's this old British director named Peter Brook who passed away just last year. He was like 90 something, but he saw the director's hunch where, it's not a fully formed idea. You don't really know the pieces, the particles, like any artistic endeavor. And when I'm at that point, when I'm at the beginning infant stages, I will make a poster. And so I'll go and I'll come up with an image. And that image may change later. Not often. Usually 70% of the time, that's the image that goes to the end of the production. So I'll do that, and then I'll make a playlist. And then I'll start talking about it. I used to be a little too antsy and you knew me when I was more of like a frenetic psychopath. And I feel like I've downshifted a bit just because I'm old and jaded. Yeah. And so now everything is much more hopefully holistic, and I put things through a process. And again, a gestation period.
Is it jaded or wiser?
Oh, I'm being self-deprecating. That's another thing that I try to work on too. So yeah, it's probably some sort of smarts. But I think I got a face that is like, it's like an I want to hate you kind of face. So I always lean on the self-deprecating. Like people immediately are like, I think I have like a very, it's whatever the male version of resting bitch face is. I have like a fuck that guy face.
Adrienne can relate because she's been called out to or been known to have resting bitch face,
especially on this podcast. I'm like,
never.
You know what's funny?
People are like, you look so mean. Why are you so mean?
I do that, dude. I do a playlist. I do a poster, and then what I've gotten better at is that I let things marinate, you know, because there's no real rush. Sometimes you have to strike, but I think with the plays, with any theater work, unless they're adaptations of like classic works, which I can bang out, you know, in 5 days, because it's Minority Report. I'm using different versions. I'm kind of doing like a mosaic of stuff. But with the original plays, which is what I'm more focused on with these days, if it's a good idea, dude, it'll be a good idea in 6 months. It'll be a good idea in a year. And I need to just like let that kind of go in my bloodstream. And usually now when I've done that process, the things come out the other end way better, way better.
Well, I totally understand that. I think my problem with that, the ideas are always going to be great. My fear is I'm going to die before I even get it out. By the way, you look great, man. You do. You look great. I like it.
Thanks, dude. I'm trying to figure out. 44 feels like my best version, but you know, when you're like thinning hair and you like those 15 pounds take triple the amount of work, that stuff sucks.
They take no work to put on.
None. I'll have half a bag of gummy worms, and then I'm like, 20 pounds? Well, how did this happen? But I do feel like I'm able to kind of meet people and talk to people and be with myself in a way that I never had before. And so that's very, very cool.
Yeah, that's a good feeling. All right, I'm going to set this 45-minute timer to drop just to keep me knowing how far I should be into the drawing. Let me start off with a couple of Sophie's Choice questions while I get into the mode of drawing and having a discussion with you. So cool. The first Sophie's Choice question I have for you is 9 Inch Nails hurt or Johnny Cash's hurt?
Oh, wow. Johnny Cash is hurt.
Ah, sweet. Well, what about Harrison Ford or Francis Ford Coppola?
Harrison Ford.
Wow, look at you. What about Forrest Whitaker or Whitney Houston?
Whitney Houston.
Yeah. Are you a fan of Forrest Whitaker though? I'm sure.
Totally, but I mean, I think you have to go with the dead person.
Yeah, that's true. What about Whitney Houston? Whitney Houston or Britney Spears? He's really thinking about it.
Whitney Houston still, for sure.
It was hard for me to find Wits or Hertford, so I was taking Hurt.
Is it Hertford?
Yeah, in Britain, if we want to be pretentious, they say Hartford. No, it totally is, but it's very American to be like Hurt, you know.
Hey, you know what? Last night I watched Wildlife, dude, and wow, that's a dark, not dark, but or would you call it dark?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when the ending came around, I'm like, no, I want to fast forward.
You've never watched it before?
I had never seen it before.
You never saw that before?
No.
Oh yeah, man.
You look great in that.
That was sort of like, oh, thanks.
Outside's still, but the inside's secrets shout. Towns like here, most stay, or never make it. Sooner or later, they have to break the cage.
I did. I have a tendency to transform a little bit more now, which is probably fairly self-indulgent and sort of not good for any sort of relationship or whatever. But I mean, yeah, I really liked playing that guy. And the thing is, that sucker, that was the thing that we established this film company. Then I got into grad school, and that was our last project that we shot. And we shot that all in Utah, and it went to Cannes. And
Yeah.
so I remember looking at my business partner, Ryan, and he like came out to France, and we went, and it was so dreamy to do that. And I was like, should we stop? Should we like stop on now being on top? And so we did. So we haven't, yeah. And then I just went to grad school and started the theater company. But we see each other. We talk every week, and he lives here, and I'm sure we'll go back to it and do it. You know, it's one of those things. Like I look at that movie, and it's intense. I would definitely write it and shoot it very differently now.
Of course.
Yeah, I was kind of doing like a bit of kitchen sink shit with that, where I was throwing everything, and it's a little muddy. I'm a really, really, really big fan of minimalism and economy of story. I'm writing this is the first time I've ever been hired to write a screenplay for a subsequent film. And I'm very like, I don't want to jinx it, but it has like really good actors attached to it. And these producers saw my Chekhov piece, the first play we did out of the pandemic last spring. And they literally saw this like black box weird play that I did and said, you know, we have $500,000 ready to go. And here's the play. Do you want to adapt the play into a screenplay? And the point of all that is that the process of that is like me just taking a machete to things and getting rid of stuff. I'm a big fan of doing less. And so I think there's a radicalness in that, which is now with the theater company, you know, we get feedback where people are like, wow, this feels very punk rock. It feels very new and radical. And I'm like, half of that is because we have no set and we're, you know, rubbing two pennies together, and it's scotch tape and bubble gum. So it's still very punk rock, but it's because it's like minimalism.
Sure. Are you more writer and director now than acting? Or are you still both? I mean, where's your head space at mostly?
My headspace is always writing and directing now, probably for the last 7-8 years. I just feel like it's a better usage of what I've learned and my skills and kind of where my brain lays. But strangely, this play that we just finished here in LA, we did a 3-week run, this very wild Oedipus Antigone two-hander, where I read those old plays and I was like, Oedipus is a boomer. He's just a straight up boomer. And Antigone, in between the two plays, is taking care of her old father. And I saw her in Scrubs with the mask, and I thought, this is all very relevant. And so I wrote this thing in like 5 or 6 days and found an Antigone to play it, and found a really cool space over here in East LA, Frogtown. And basically it's a monologue. It's a 75-minute monologue whilst I'm the old man, which again, it's like I feel forever 23 years old.
Sure.
But I grew my beard out, and the actress was like, motherfucker, you're the guy. You should be the dad. And so I did, and what it required was you know, he gouges his eyes out before this play. And so I really did the play blind. So I would cover my eyes, and I have no lines until the very, very end of the play. So to answer your question, my head is always in writing and directing, but weirdly, this play, it looks, I haven't like officially announced it, but I'm excited to always try to manifest and be witchy and put it out there. There's a likelihood that we're going to transfer this little two-hander to New York in July. And for me, that's very dreamy to be able to, I've never, you know, 40 years, I've never performed in New York. I've done some like a short film or two in New York, but I've never done any theater work there. And
that's the big cheese, right? Performing theater in New York City. Like that's the
I mean, it's a certain level of eyeballs that you're going to get that you're never going to get anywhere else. For me, I prefer London. London is
Oh,
my
yeah.
favorite place on the planet.
How long were you living there for?
I was there for 3.5 years, and I miss it every day. And it's just, it's embedded in my soul.
Are there any plans for you? Like, do you ever feel like you'll end up there again?
Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to make that happen. I think the universe has allowed me to sort of stay afloat and shift and pivot my life in a way where like that could be a possibility. And I just think my sensibilities and the things that I do work really well there. But I have been really happy that when I came back, even when I was in Utah for that 2-year period right after that, I feel like there's a European influence that I love and I'm drawn to that I was supposed to bring back to the States, that faithfully I was supposed to like show this. And even in a, very sort of like, we think we're the coolest place in the world type of place, like fucking Los Angeles. Even they were with these last 2 plays, they were like, what is this? This is new and fresh. And that made me very excited.
Yeah.
I had people that I went to high school with and people that didn't know Whit from 2013 till now that got to see this brand new version of me and my work. And that was very, very exciting. I mean, this 2-hand play, which is called Blindness and Periphery of Sight. Most people don't mess with the Greek plays like this. And I really went pretty crazy with it. And found an actress who she's never done any theater.
Oh,
like at all.
wow.
She's done some short films and I gave her this script, which again is a 75-minute monologue. And she didn't bat an eye. She was like, I think I can do it. She's a monster. She's such a monster. I love her. And so when we, we're knocking on wood, I think it's going to happen. So we're going to do that. And then the screenplay, hopefully we'll shoot that film next year, which I've never shot a full feature by myself. And these guys are kind of giving me carte blanche. I read the play. I was like, I like the elements of it, but I want to get really weird with it. Very David Lynch, very Yorgos
cool.
Lanthimos. And the playwright and the producers were both very cool with that. Usually it's death by meetings and you have all of these different egos in the room, but that's not happening. And so I feel very fortunate that all my creative outlets right now are with partners and scenarios where people leave me alone and let me do what I do.
That's when you get your best work. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey,
that was killer, by the way, dude. I'm gonna get that as a tattoo. I already know that's happening.
Hey, let me throw a Sophie's Choice at you while we're right here.
Love them. I love these Sophie Choice. More of these.
Blake Griffin or Kathy Griffin?
Oh, poor Blake, man. Yeah, Blake. All the way, Blake.
I know you're a big Clippers fan, right? Or has that changed?
No, it's totally true. I mean, I'm not like buying headbands and wearing jerseys like I used to back in the day. That was when I was trying not to get laid, you know?
You mean being a diehard fan isn't a big turn on for women?
I don't know, Adrienne, you can shut this out, but I got like a sneaking suspicion that like sports jerseys aren't the most like hot look for dudes.
I would agree. But yeah. Other people may not.
So yeah, no, it's actually kind of interesting. I was thinking about this because like, yeah, I'm still very connected to that team. I've kind of been with them through the roughest of periods and I just love it. And it feels like sort of like a metaphor for my life that my sports team is very parallel with a lot of what I feel I've gone through in my life.
Sure.
And so that feels kind of cool.
Hey, maybe that's why you were attracted to him.
I think actually 100%. I always was like, you know, my family was Dodgers fans, but I never really was into the Lakers. I liked Shaquille for a while, but I never really liked the vibe of the Laker fans because I feel they're they're kind of entitled and they're kind of bullies. And Clipper fans, like, to be a Clipper fan, you have to like really like the minutia. You have to
Yeah.
like the details. You have to like kind of the small victories, because
Sure.
usually that's what it is. And so for me, that's another thing. Like, I don't need big stuff to happen in my life. And once I sort of released myself from expectation, I would say, not to go down this, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but our mutual friend Joel, I talk to him all the time, and he's seen it firsthand. I've gone through this really heavy spiritual renaissance over the last 6 years, that I really needed, that I felt like I had leapfrogged. And so my art has followed that lead, and I think has the DNA of this transition. And I really love, that most of my life these days as a director, as a teacher, because I do workshops and I go to different universities and, try to make Russian theater sound fucking cool and get kids excited. So that stuff. And then, I love going to the desert, and people will talk to me all the time about like the spirituality of that. And so all of the different roles in my life are very from a place where I'm like not a father figure, but I think somebody that needs to be reliable, and that I can't be selfish, and I can't be up my own ass. I have to really be open and centered, and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't taken a real good look in the mirror maybe 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
I love it. People came to this, without giving too much away, and I keep promoting this play, but that's just where my head's at. Oedipus goes through this thing where he's done these horrific things, slept with his mom, killed his dad, all these heavy dramatic
As you
things,
do.
right? And then harms himself by removing his eyes, and he's at nothing. He's like a lot of boomers, like a lot of people, our parents' generation, they had this one idea of life that centered around accumulation and acquiring and power and status, and having things, having a lot of things, a car, a house.
Yeah, it was very boomer.
Yeah, and he, at the end of the play, before he dies, kind of has a reckoning, and in the play, it's sort of off stage. You hear about this transformation where I was like, I want to see that, and so I thought, well, people in our generation and younger, the way that they're kind of getting to do spiritual work is they're going through mindfulness, they're going through meditation, they're going through exploring psychedelics. And for me, all of my religious upbringing completely got replaced by all of that.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the play, he legitimately goes through this acid trip with projections in the background and the desert and starscape, and I'm in my underwear, and it's big, it's epic.
Hey, I was just thinking, when you said you're in your underwear, you're also in your underwear in wildlife. Do you get self-conscious of that, being in your underwear and scene? Because I know I would have a hard time with that, but you're a pro. But
I think that's just like a crazy coincidence, actually, that those two projects we're talking about. Well, when I did that movie, I was the thinnest, the most emaciated, but it wasn't healthy. There was definitely drug use and different things that I used.
Yeah, you seemed like you were in a dark headspace through that.
Yeah, I was doing
that
like
movie.
that. I did. I mean, and I think it's okay for me to talk about it. I don't mind it. I kind of look up to people that are transparent about it. I had always been self-conscious about my weight. Probably after my dad died when I was 14, I started packing it on as like emotional eating. And being a short kid, you're already like behind the curve. You're already sort of, looked at as a best friend or a runt or like the little whippersnapper. And so that psychologically always fucked with me. And so I found this stuff like a fat burner, and I thought, well, it's not, it's not actually speed, but it did all
Oh,
this stuff
I
that
see.
was like speed.
Sure.
So it was very methy, very speed, and I got addicted to it for years and years and years. And I was the most trim I ever was in that film, which having to be in my underwear at that point, that was fine. This one with Oedipus, was a totally different story because I'm not my most fit and trim, but I'm definitely my most happy.
Yeah.
And, and
Mentally.
so, yeah, and so I kind of just felt, it's going to be exposure therapy. Um, I dated a person during the pandemic that was really, really great at times, and then there were other things about it that wasn't that good. And I experienced a thing that I don't think a lot of guys go through. I think a lot of women go through, but I experienced some body shaming during that relationship, and it was really hardcore. And it was a thing that in 40 years of my life and all the different left and right turns of trauma that I feel I've weathered and been victorious, I had never encountered that. And it was so personal and damaging and hard. And when this play came around, I wasn't trying to play Oedipus. I was looking for a 65-year-old actor to play what we picture Oedipus. And then when the actor said, the Antigone said, "It's you, you should do this," it made sense like immediately. And I just thought, well, cool. I'm just going to show as much skin as possible as a big fuck you to that relationship.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And so I did, and it was very empowering, very liberating to be able to do that.
Has your art always been your source of therapeutic healing and kind of looking back on your, or like inner like self-reflection and stuff? Have you always consciously used it as that, or has it always just worked out that way?
I think subconsciously I would be dealing with like dad stuff through my art, and I did that for a while. And I'd be dealing with religious trauma stuff through my art, but it wasn't mature. It hadn't found its place. It was a lot of tries. And so I think time became the real sort of oven and helped bake things better. And so now it's very conscious. It's very, very conscious, but I try not to do it in a way that feels on the nose. I'm writing a play right now that's literally called science fiction. I have 3 plays that are science fiction genre, which sounds crazy to do a sci-fi play. Like, what does that look like? But essentially it's ex machina, but on stage. It's still about characters and relationships. But I had wanted to write about this idea that when you have a breakup, sometimes yourself or the other person have to pretend like that person is dead. Like, you can't necessarily always have the most squeaky clean, kumbaya ending. And because I'm a Scorpio, my love runs very hot and deep and intense. And so when that has to be severed, sometimes I've gone through a thing where, the person leaves and they kind of have to, it has to be like a death. But I didn't want to write that specifically and as on the nose. So I came up with this plot line that deals with that, but you wouldn't know that that's what it was about if you don't hear me say that. So I try to, between my art and drums, when I was a kid, playing the drums was such a great release to just beat the shit out of things.
Right. And
it stayed with me. I mean, I live in this apartment, so I can't really play them in here, but
do you have a drum kit in there?
Yeah. In the back. I have a little painting room and that's where the drums live.
So you still play often?
I wouldn't say that I play often, but I love it and I would like to, and I'm literally still at 44 always going like, let's start a band. Like, I'm always thinking.
Well, hey, speaking of bands, what's this? Oh, what did I see? You had a band called Natural History or something?
And when I wake you up, I'm coming over. We're gonna go out, I won't take no for an answer. And I will take you up Mauna Loa, the long mountain where lava dances.
Yeah,
Is that still something you're doing, or is it?
So it was a 2-person thing with my friend Austin, and kind of like a folky thing. And so we did an EP that we recorded up in the mountains. I don't remember what year that was, maybe 2018, 17, something like that. And literally pulled my drums up a sled into a snowy cave, and it was really, really cool.
Is that something that we can hear? Or is there somewhere to hear that music, or is it?
Yeah, I think there's a Bandcamp for Natural History. But
cool.
Then we haven't released it yet because we're just weirdos. We did like an EP of covers during the pandemic. And so there's like a cover of That Thing You Do, but done very folksy. And there's a cover of like a Sam Smith song and a Ben Folds song, and then a song from Nico that was on like the Royal Tenenbaums soundtrack. And so I've messed around with that. That's probably the last recording, but I vacillate, man. I vacillate between wanting to play the drums like I'm making love to it, like it's soft and there's the texture and it's all that. And then there's the other part of me that just wants to be crazy and punk and beat the shit out of them and break sticks. And so I'm in that vibe right now, where I'm listening to like a lot of Idols, and I'm listening to a lot of this UK punk band called Bad Nerves. I feel like they have the energy that like really makes sense. That, I don't know, I feel like when we were growing up, there were certain bands like Green Day or whatever that we liked, but now in retrospect, I'm like, ugh, they're kind of cheesy.
Were you, I know you like Brit punk, right?
Yeah.
Here's a few I have for you. Sex Pistols or the Buzzcocks?
Well, Buzzcocks, 1,000%.
Yeah, good, nice.
1,000%.
What about the Addicts or the Adverts?
Oh, wow. Probably the Adverts.
Oh, cool. I didn't know a whole lot of the Adverts, but I was an Addicts fan. Yeah, that was cool. I saw that you were into Britpunk, and I thought that's awesome. Of course, Whit's into Britpunk.
I just feel like I'm always into, you know what I'm really into? I really love a good protest or a good like revolution, and whatever that's manifested in, whether that's manifested in art scene, in Greenwich Village, whether that's manifested in a film scene in the late 60s in Paris with Godard and Truffaut, whether that's manifested with, there was a period in Britain in the 90s where it was called In Your Face, YER theater, where it was the complete opposite of Noel Coward and all of sort of those drawing room dramas. And it was grotesque. It was offensive. It caused a real panic. But now all of those playwrights in that period are kind of revered. A woman named Sarah Kane, who kind of took what Beckett did in the 50s and just went to a more gruesome place. I mean, she had a very sort of like Elliott Smith life track where she killed herself at the end. And so, I always wonder about that. I tell myself, I go, Hertford, you can't go that deep because all the people that you identify with, the Philip Seymour Hoffmans or the Sarah Kanes or whatever, they go too far. They go to the dark.
Sure.
And, my dad did that. My dad ended his life early. And so I think I've had a long time, decades and decades and decades, to kind of figure out who I am, but also try to do that in the healthiest way possible. And I've not always been successful, whether it's substance stuff or fractured relationships or narcissism, I run very passionate, and that is a hair's trigger away from looking like a complete asshole and a tyrant. And so I have to always manage that and understand that I may get passionate, but if I'm talking about myself, even though I'm allowed to on this, but I can't do this at a coffee date because it's not nice. It's very unkind.
Right. Well, you were talking about protest. How has that gone? Have we lost? Has society? Have we lost protest music and like things like Neil Young, and like have we lost that, or do people or protest art still happening on a high level?
That's such a good question. I fucking love it because I've been thinking about this. I actually think we're in a really good spot in 2022 as Americans, as artists, as people that are curious with change and evolution and the movement of things. I think we're in a really good spot where people are now ready for some sort of engagement. And I think there was a while during the pandemic and up until recently where we were numbed out.
Sure.
We had fatigue. And not to get on my soapbox, but like, I mean, who fucking cares? When we're living through our first pseudo dictatorship as a country, it's going to affect you. And I think we had to get rid of the barrage and sort of the onslaught of news and opinion and the age of commentary with Facebook and Instagram.
Sure.
Like, we had to really figure out how to pull back from that. But now I think we have a voracious appetite, and I don't know. I think it's up to a few people to really be bold and to not be afraid. I have this really interesting idea that I've been obsessed about with recently, that fear is the great motivator. And so in our real life, when we wake up, we don't wake up, if we're being honest, always being so holistic and meditative. We try to get there each day. We try to bring that in. But really, if we're being honest, that alarm goes off and we're going, fuck, I'm going to be late. And if I'm late, I'm going to get fired. And if I get fired, I don't get that income. And if I don't get that income, my mortgage is affected, blah, 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 blah. And so we're motivated by fear in our real life, and we try to push it away. But as a theater practitioner and as an artist, I really think that as far as stage work goes, and as far as theater and film work, embracing fear, saying like, this is very geeky, so I'll be geeky now, Adrienne, it's my turn, is that this man that most people know, Konstantin Stanislavski, who created kind of what's known as like the original method of acting. He worked with Anton Chekhov, who's my favorite playwright, and they didn't like each other. Actually, they worked together a lot, but they didn't really vibe. They didn't like each other that much because they were very different people. And Stanislavski brought to the forefront this theory and this philosophy of motivations and of doing sensory work and finding substitutions from your real life and kind of putting that through a process and a filter. And as a director, as an actor, I've always heard, and you've heard this, and probably said this to people yourself, that what do you want? What does your character want? What's your objective? What's your motive? Well, when you say want, I think, and I thought this like during my runs the last year, I'd go on my morning runs and I was like, I think it's backwards, because we're obsessed with what we want as a character, as an artist. Then everything is like gold paved, right? And you start to like make very narcissistic characters. If Hamlet is he, she, they, whoever's playing this role, because Hamlet's one of those great roles which you could go a million different directions with. And it is the best play ever written for a reason, in my opinion. That if Hamlet is being concerned with what they want, if you ask 99 out of 100 actors and directors, what does Hamlet want? They're all going to say, oh, to avenge their father's death. But if you say, what does Hamlet fear? What does Hamlet dread? That makes it more immediate. That makes it more electric. And it makes the conflict thicker and stronger and more interesting. And so, there's a bunch of different ways to answer that. But, maybe Hamlet's fear is that he, she, they doesn't want Gertrude to go the same way that their father did. So everything Hamlet does in the play is try to preserve that relationship, which he can feel in real time slipping through his fingers. And so I'm obsessed with this idea about fear, because I think, going back to your earlier question, as Americans, I think we're so fearful. We're so fearful of looking wrong, of looking stupid, of looking unattractive, of looking mental, of looking off. And I think, the more that we can get rid of that, the better we're going to be.
Well, and yeah, it feels like I tell people a lot with my art. All my drawings are introspective, or when I draw, it's what trying to think about that I can't outwardly discuss because I don't have the mental or the vocabulary to explain what I feel. So my drawings have always been what I feel, but it takes me about 2 years to process what I've experienced. I draw from everything that I've observed and experienced. And maybe that's what's happening with us right now, being through, Trump era and, the pandemic and everything. Maybe while that was happening, we just hadn't had the time to process all the shit that's happened. Because it does feel kind of like right at this moment with the, the midterms that just happened and everything, there is sort of this feeling of people kind of like recognizing, holy shit, this whirlwind we just been through. Like how are we going to process all of that madness?
No, I'm very emboldened and very encouraged that I think people are really having a reckoning with their fatigue and saying, I don't want to be fatigued anymore. I don't want to be angry anymore. Anger is one of those things that, hey man, we're going to segue into this because this always happens when anybody talks to me these days. When I started messing around with psychedelics, my anger and trauma backpack hit the floor, and I don't fuck with anger anymore.
Yeah.
And in LA, where there's the opportunity to have road rage every day or whatever, I just let it go, man. And I think that the more that we can do that, the places that have been sort of the opposition, air quotes, their fuel is all anger. And so they try to make you angry. They egg you on. They try to incite anger. And if anger is not a thing, then we can really kind of like tune that out,
that's how you take control.
Exciting. That's right. That's right. There's so many things that are more interesting to be angry about. I mean, I think that sometimes we get into these big philosophical or political debates online because it's a way for us to feel some sort of A, community, and B, to feel validated that our ideas are heard. But usually it's back and forth. And so, listening is a much better way to do that. I had a mentor in Britain who said, if you don't remember anything about these classes, but you remember that the director's job is to learn, look, listen again, listen a third time, and then speak, then you're going to be in business.
Yeah, listening and hearing and computing it is a incredibly difficult skill.
That's right. Hey, so I don't know. I think it's a great question. I could talk about it for hours and hours and hours, but I think, the fact that your podcast has a theme of art, and my life I haven't always been this lucky to be able to be consumed by what I love, but I've been able to find a niche where I'm writing, I'm directing, I'm painting, I'm doing music, and that's literally, I'm finding ways to make money, which you're a giant inspiration of going like, that's what I want to do. That's how I'm going to make money at it. That's, I think we're cut from the same cloth, and I love that.
Well, thank you.
So yeah, I think we're in a big protest, and I think it's artists like us that, and it's up to us to kind of not necessarily scream and shout and tell other people that they're stupid. I think what needs to be communicated better as far as like the opposition, and is to say like, look, the reason it's upsetting is because you could do better and you could live a life that's more enriching if you kind of woke up. I'm not trying to tell you that you're stupid. I'm trying to tell you that for whatever reason, you became susceptible and it got into your veins. And I want to help you to recover from that and to heal.
Yeah, it's like your service.
Yeah, it's like we do this Oedipus play. We didn't really know what it was going to be, if people were going to dig it. I was affectionately calling it Lars von Sophocles because it's not like a great. It's a rough watch. It's like a Lars von Trier movie on stage, and I had grown men, standing ovations at the end, saying like, "This was healing. I needed to reckon with my father's death, and I needed to reckon with like guilt and shame and grief." All of the Greek plays, they're ultimately, when you boil it down, they're about grief. And I think it's a really interesting topic to deal with. Like, how do you understand, how do you justify, and how do you sort of become resolved with grief?
You talk it out.
Exactly. You talk it out. You totally talk it out.
Let me hit you with some of the staples since the timer had gone off.
Oh, it's so good.
It'll be better. What I send you will be way better. During the actual recording part. Yeah, of course.
Bro, that's so cool. That's very cool. Right on.
Let me hit you with we do a trivia thing on the show. So now it's going to be a pop trivia, and I'm going to give you a decade that you can choose from.
Okay.
50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or the 2000s.
Let's do 90s.
Okay. 90s is fun.
Oh, I'm feeling very not confident about any of them. Okay.
Yeah, but how about nowadays kids can say, "Oh, you're from the 1990s?"
It's so weird. It's so weird, man.
The Prince song "Nothing Compares to You." Ah, shit. That's too
Sinead
easy.
O'Connor.
Yeah, that one's too easy. All right, here we go.
Which by the way, I remember growing up and being like, this person's really intense, because I grew up Mormon, so I grew up stupid and sheltered. And I remember being like, this person's so intense. I rewatched some Sinead stuff like a month ago, and I was like, the prettiest person of all time.
Yeah.
I was like, how did we just because she had a shaved head, like we're so lame.
Well,
so lame.
that was a time thing. She was ahead of her time.
She really was. And I was just like, wow, if that person was on the scene right now, I would have the biggest crush on her.
Well, and that's why that's why generations always go back, why we redo things, because with the time that it's happening, eventually it becomes lame. But then new generations can go like, yeah, now they're wearing, like my kids wear 80s shit. And I'm like, oh God, that's coming back. Or 90s or whatever.
Cool, let's be honest. You're raising
pretty cool
human beings, you guys.
We got lucky. Well, okay, here we go. First sold in 1999, which device turned its head towards a person, wiggled its tail on its trophy plaque, and sang cheesy cover songs?
Billy the Bass?
Big Mouth Billy Bass. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah, I didn't know that. What?
Yeah.
Like that's wrong.
My brain was just thinking like Furby, maybe. I don't know.
No, you know why I know that? I know that is because my favorite television show of all time. And like, if I'm gonna rewatch it with somebody, if they've never watched it, I'm like, look, this is a commitment where we have to watch both seasons and the Christmas special, The Office BBC. They had an episode where he's got the Big Mouth Billy on the wall. So that's why
but that's what you use. That's where you get your knowledge. Well, then here's my other thing that another staple. It's a useless factoid. And this is going to be a useless factoid that you I'm sure you know, but we're going to share it with everyone, and we're going to keep it so 2 of Shakespeare's plays have been translated into Klingon. Do you know which plays?
Into Klingon, like they were part of Star Trek?
That the whole plays have been translated into Klingon language. Isn't that crazy?
Your reaction is great.
I don't know, but I'm going to take a guess. Are they? Can I ask a hint? Sure. Are both of these plays one of the more known Shakespeare plays?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to say I don't think they're going to be the romances because I don't think that makes sense. So was it used on the show?
No. They actually just translate, because Klingon is an actual language.
So this is just like fanfic that they did.
They translated. Yep. I don't know who exactly did. Yeah, I don't know who did it, but whoever speaks Klingon translated them into Klingon language. And which means, what use is that?
I feel like King Lear would be really interesting to see that way. Is that one of them?
Here's the thing for you is all the plays kind of inside and out. So you're trying, you're going the route where you're like, well, what would be kind of in relation with Klingon? and the story. You're right.
Right. But it's not, right?
It's
They're
not.
totally disassociated. Okay.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Then I'm gonna say R&J and Midsummer.
No, the answer
Neither?
is Hamlet and Much Ado About Nothing.
Fuck! Of course.
Here's a Sophie's choice for you: Star Wars or Star Trek.
Star Wars, 1000%. And this is where I'll get real geeky, and I'll take all of my like cool theater, artsy fartsy credibility and flush it down the tubes. The new Star Wars that's Andor, whatever.
I don't know. Yeah, I do. I mean, I haven't
I
watched.
think we saw that.
Oh,
The
we
new
must
one.
have.
It's so good. It's like Blade Runner, but with Star Wars.
Oh,
It's
that's cool.
so good. And people aren't watching it because Disney, threw out like 4 shows
Too
within
much.
a calendar year.
Yeah, it's
So
too
people
much.
are over it. But it's the best. Like, I
Okay.
was a huge fan when Rogue One came out because I was like, there's one lightsaber in that movie, and it's at the very end. And it's essentially just a military drama with battles, and that's why it's so fucking cool.
But hey, didn't you do a voiceover for Star Wars or Clone Wars or something?
Yeah, man. I was in Clone Wars. I did this guy named Cadet Crazy. He's in the academy. And the thing about that, like, first of all, that was one of the gigs that really, when I got the manila envelope from Lucasfilm and they sent me the contract and the script and blah, 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 blah. This is like 2006, 2007. Like my knees buckled because it said on the letter, it said, Whit, now that you're part of the Star Wars family. And I am so jaded that doesn't happen very often. And that was like unfucking believable. So that was pretty cool. But the other cool thing that's happened regarding that gig is that I have a friend who's she's very much on the zeitgeist with all the Disney and Marvel stuff. And she was like, hey, the Reddit, this was like a year ago. It's like, hey, the Reddit boards are going bananas about your character. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, there's a fan theory that your mom hooked up with Obi-Wan Kenobi and you're the love child. And I was like, dude, I really wanted to get an action figure and I was bummed out. I was like, once I get an action figure, maybe
It's
I'll
over.
retire.
Yeah.
But to be a possible kin of Kenobi, that's bananas.
Well, let me ask you something then. We're being all open and everything. Do you get a sense of embarrassment or feel shame or anything for like your past work, like what the work that you were doing when you were younger? Is there a feeling of kind of pain, or I don't know if pain's the right word, but
no, you're framing it perfectly. Yeah, I think like firstly, I was so lucky to be able to be given a good version of working in the industry as a kid because my mom kept us at public school. And we didn't live right in the city. We lived in the suburbs. So I was able to skateboard and play drums and be a normal kid. But I was auditioning a lot. And so a lot of things that the other kids got to do, which is, play soccer, be on a soccer club afterwards. Like I didn't really get to do that. And there are certain gigs and certain credits that I'm proud of. Jurassic is a thing where it's like Jurassic Park. It's not Ernest Saves Christmas, right? So I'm proud of that. But there are other things, sitcoms and other things that are just kind of cheesy. And the problem with that is like, imagine like when you were 13 and 14, your entire photo album, and it's like, it's forever on the internet. You're immortalized.
Yeah. And also part of a fake world, because I was kind of just looking up, even doing more deeper research into, and I never realized that you were on an episode of Full House, but I'm looking at that picture of you and Stephanie.
Yeah,
I'm like, you're adorable in that picture. But as I was looking at it, I was wondering, like, I wonder if that's tough to see out there.
Well,
Especially because that's a child that you probably don't even really know anymore. Like that person that was there, because you're
kind of. I actually have very vivid, because that was also the year that my dad passed away. I did 2 really big gigs. I did the Nightmare movie, and then I did Full House in the same year, which my mom was really smart to keep like me busy and
yeah,
keep
of course,
me active. I think it was a good distraction. And she was never forcing us, so that was really healthy. But the thing about the Full House thing was that, like, dude, I don't know how, but literally that is 34 years ago, and people still will put it together, and they'll see me and spot me and put it and I don't know. I mean, even when I was wearing a mask during the pandemic, I'd be going to the grocery store like that, and people would be like, oh, duck face. And it's wild. I guess I'm grateful for it, but you know, like, I've worked so hard. Like, you know, I was 18, and when we first met, I was 18 or 19 or whatever. And there was a moment when I didn't want to act anymore. And I wanted to I thought about doing music for real and playing the drums. And then I started to get into like the actual technique and skill of filmmaking. And so I started watching, you know, films that were really inspiring, Taxi Driver, and Blade Runner, and you know, I like really weird stuff. Like, I think Pee-wee's Big Adventure is one of the funniest, amazing movies of all time, but it's really strange. And I got into that, and then what really sealed it, what got me to Salt Lake and undergrad, was I sat in the theater, having loved Raising Arizona, and watched Fargo for the first time on screen. And there was something about that film, and specifically William H. Macy, that I was like, okay, that makes sense, and that feels like something I want to do. I've never felt like, again, I've been short my whole life. I've been kind of an oddball my whole life, so I've never identified with the leading man thing. And so when I would see guys like Giamatti or Philip Seymour Hoffman or Macy or, you know, whatever, Willem Dafoe, like these are the guys that I identified with.
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi. So that got me there. And yeah, I forgot.
Well, you know, but it does seem like you have I mean, I'm just guessing, I don't know, but it does seem like you do have a recognition that is what people remember you, not to say that's the only thing they remember you as, but they do remember it, and for a lot of people that was a good time in their lives.
No,
like,
so that's totally true. Like,
and so they go like, oh, he's part of that.
Yeah, like I vehemently didn't want to do conventions for a long time.
I was going to ask you if you've been doing conventions.
Yeah. And then during the pandemic, I realized that getting to connect with the fans of whether it's horror films through Nightmare or nostalgia stuff with Jurassic or animation, whatever, they're really, really lovely people, and it's a really nice thing. And so I love doing that, and I think I do have more of a respect for it. But because I feel like even at 44, I have this new sort of lease on life where, you know, I've written now probably 20 or so plays, and I've been able to produce, write, and act in 30 short films and features that we did myself. And I feel like I always knew the grayer I got, the balder I got, the fatter I got, the more interesting my art was going to be, whether as a creator or as an actor. And I think that's coming true to life, that, you know, when I can play a dad for the first time, which I did here with Oedipus, that like it made sense. And I'm really, you know, I'm excited by that.
Well, and I was just going to say, even though you may have done work that you don't care for, you were never like typecast. I don't think, were you? Like, you were never that guy. who could only be that guy. You know,
No,
so everything
no.
that you did, every project you did, whether you liked it or not, it led you to where you are today. So there's no reason to feel anything other than proud for having done it, I think.
Thank you. No, I really tried, and I started doing this in undergrad, where I had a teacher who she was from England, and she kept saying, you know, Whit, you don't need to always be like the comic relief. You're interesting enough by yourself. And she would cast me in these like leading man romantic roles. And that kind of that gave me the first taste that I could kind of maybe blur the expectation. One of the short films that we did first, right, when I before I went to London, I was here. We did a short film called Long Story Short with a person named Nora Kirkpatrick, who I met at UCB at Upright Citizens Brigade, and she was a musician with Edward Sharpe in the Magnetic Zeros, and she's now a very established commercial director. She's 5'11", and so we did this thing where it was like, we knew we had chemistry. We knew that we really liked working with each other. We're like, can we harness that and make a narrative that kind of blows to smithereens all of the expectations and stigmas? And we did, and we took that to 15, 16 fests, and routinely the audiences would say, we forgot about the height discrepancy within 5 minutes. And I felt like that was a really cool experiment to see if that could happen. I mean, I have a weird face, man, but I think I've been able to channel my soul into performance and into how I try to connect with people, not just creatively, but personally too.
Did you just say you had a weird face?
He's being self-deprecating again.
It's a person.
Yeah,
So I don't
agree.
know what you're saying there.
I agree.
That's
Wait, say it again. Wait, say it again. You cut out.
You're a very handsome man.
Cool. Thanks, Angel.
We got to get this question from Mr. Dibbs in.
Oh, so, sweet. Okay.
Yeah. Let's take a question from Mr. Dibbs.
Give it up, Mr. Dibbs on the turntable.
Listen to more of this.
Well, hello, Whit.
Hi, Mr. Dibbs.
Here's the deal. Adrienne and Tai are managing a new band that they put together. It's kind of an eclectic mix of characters you might be familiar with. Dakota Stanley from Glee is playing the wet wooden triangle. Mr. Belvedere's bottom lip is on tambourine. Duckface from Full House is playing the ankle monitor. And Kane from Poltergeist 2 is on vocals. Got all that figured out so far. The band is called The Kid from Lay It Down's Lost Wish. So, for press purposes, we need to know what The Kid from Lay It Down's Lost Wish was. And that's where you come in, sir. There's your question. What was The Kid from Lay It Down's Lost Wish?
Oh.
Wow.
Go.
I don't even think it's that lost, man. In the video, he wants more than anything to be a rock star, and specifically, I think he wants to get the girl, which, that makes sense, and that's parallel for me to, I'm a diehard romantic, and so.
Are you a romantic?
Are you kidding me? What do you know? Of course. Are you big? You're big facetious, yeah? All right. I'm always like, what?
You brought up before we wrap this up. You had mentioned a fan thing that was happening with the Star Wars thing. You know of this other fan theory, and I'll bring it up because I don't think Adrienne knows it. But there's that fan theory that your character in the Jurassic Park had grown up to be Chris Pratt's character in the new Jurassic Park. What is your thought on that?
No, Colin Trevorrow, who has the franchise now, he rebuffed that. But when that happened, the story with that, like I usually try to keep my nose clean and stay out of the zeitgeist and try to preserve a bit of anonymity, because I think that that's one of those things that, you know, as artists, we all, and especially actors, we're also cravenly starved for attention. And so we'll then want to like get on a TikTok and share every morsel of ourselves. But the people that do that, they lose the ability to sort of morph into these characters. And I think you do your audience a bit of disservice by being way too in the public eye.
Yeah.
So I try to rebuff that. But in this one occasion, I woke up to my phone having a bazillion notifications, and it had never happened to me. This thing went viral. I've never been viral. I don't know what that is, and it was this tweet that some fan theory had said, yeah, that exact scenario, and I immediately responded and retweeted and said no. I think I sent 2 tweets, and one of them said something like, hey, at Chris Pratt, or whatever Twitter was like, in no parallel universe does this face morph into a blonde matinee idol. And then the other one was like, that role is mine, damn it, I'm not retired.
Yeah. It's awesome.
And, you know, like, I still think that the Jurassic World franchise fucked up by not having me in for like 2 lines as getting my comeuppance and being killed, or being a bit of a foe for Chris Pratt. And so I kind of like giving a bit of snark to the situation. and when fans approach me at conventions and bring up that scenario, they actually really love it. I mean, I love playing a bad guy, so I feel like that's a ton of fun for me. And also, look, dude, look, man, if you're doing a lot of weird voting, and we know that, and you're in the public eye voting for guys like Rick Caruso and talking about, you know, abortion on the wrong side, then I do want to fight you, Chris Pratt. I do want to fight you.
The throwing down the hammer.
Look, man, creating a little bit of beef kind of makes me feel like I'm doing exactly what I watched WWF do when it was Ultimate Warrior, and they would just like do that interview and do that beef. I want to do that beef.
And that doesn't come from a place of anger, as we've heard. That comes from a place of love.
Exactly. But no, I still think somebody's gotta, it can't be over. I mean, I saw that last Jurassic World, and again, you know,
I haven't watched it yet.
Here's the thing, man, and again, I'm gonna be obviously a bit controversial, but if you remove Spielberg from a thing, it's not gonna get better.
Right.
That's just proof in the pudding. So I think that, you know, they took a weird turn with that, and they tried to make it a bit of a Marvel movie. Yeah, I don't know. I feel badly about that. I'm also like, I really think that it would be cool not to try to make myself relevant per se, but when I do the horror film conventions, I'm always like, Robert Englund is getting up there, and there should definitely be Son of Kruger franchise.
Would you? There really should, man. I was huge.
That shit I would do. That shit I would do 100%.
Oh, good, because
I was asked to do the Fuller House reboot a couple of times, and I couldn't visualize doing that.
Yeah,
but the nightmare stuff I would definitely do.
Well, I did see the pictures out there. You with, I forget the actress's name, so I just call her Stephanie. But I did see the picture of you with her. It was kind of cool. Like, I see the two of them together. That's cool.
She's cool. She's a really cool person. We were gonna write a sketch for Funny or Die when all that stuff was brand new, where we had kind of a reunion, It was a dark piece. I wrote it with my friend and I pitched it to her, and she was down, and then it just kind of fizzled. But no, man, she was one of my first crushes for real. When I shot that at 10 years old, we knew what kind of romantic he was going to grow into, because I sobbed on the ride home, man. I cried in my mom's minivan, because like the last day, the studio teacher, I remember vividly, she was like, okay, we're not going to study today because we're banking a couple hours of film school or school on the set. So we're just going to bake banana bread. We're going to call it home ec. And I remember at 10 being like, this is the most romantic moment of my life.
Awesome. I heard her on I think she was on Steve-O's podcast. I heard. I didn't realize that she had done all that. That's or that she'd gone through some of that stuff that she was talking about. That's pretty incredible.
Oh no, she's good. She's really, really, really cool. And I think, she found a way to kind of turn lemons into lemonade, which I respect.
Yeah. Okay. Final Sophie's choice, and then the philosophical, and then I'm going to let you get out here, but I'm also going to let you tell a couple of actual for sure promotions that you got to hit. The final one's Full House or Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket.
Easy. All right. Here's the wrap up of the show. Your philosophical question to the wrap up. Because all our shows end with a philosophical question, and we're going to keep it in the theater.
Okay.
Wait, can I ask one real quick?
Sure.
All right. Do you think you would be prepared after your role in Jurassic Park? Are you prepared for what they're doing with DNA? Do you feel like you can fight the dinosaurs? Are you ready?
Yeah, 1,000%.
Okay. Because we need somebody who knows what they're doing.
Well, now that she asked that, I want to ask, what weapon do you choose for the zombie apocalypse?
Ooh. You know what I would love to be good at, and I think is like such an underutilized. I'd love to be good at the bow and arrow.
Archery.
Oh, yeah.
I think archery is so interesting, and it had a little resurgence with Hunger Games, but. You've never played anything where you had to do maybe you need to write yourself a character that needs to go into heavy testing or training on a bow? I would love it, man. I mean, I don't think that I'm the guy that they're going like, who's going to save the day? Oh, the dude that looks like the love child of Vincent Gallo and Danny DeVito. But everyone needs a Vincent Gallo and See, I can't not do the self-deprecating. Adrienne's so over it. She's over it. Dude, I started doing that like so long ago because I was like, I'm going to get in front of I'm going to get in front of the joke. But I've tried to dial it back because I have had a couple people that I've dated where like I think that it's a really hot joke and it's just going to kill, and they'll look at me and they'll be like, "Are you insecure?" No, you're good. I think truthfully, I watched your video when you were out in the streets and you were doing the Jurassic Park signing autographs for people. That was a self-deprecating piece, but it was funny and it was pretty awesome. Dude, I called up my buddy that morning and I was just like, we got to go do this right now. Grab a camera. And we didn't put any thought into it at all. The other one too it was cool to see you with Garfunkel and Oates singing Why Isn't There More Fucking on This Island? That one was awesome. They're very, very, very cool. I had a great time at UCB. I was there for 7 years and I really loved learning about comedy. But there was a certain point where I just felt like I was getting kind of lazy, and you have to really the comedy world is really interesting because there's so many really, really smart, good actors that are part of the comedy world. But if you're not careful and if you don't have your own barometer, you will start to be kind of reductive and you'll start to just look for the laugh. And that becomes like, it almost becomes a thing where you're cheapening yourself. And so I'm glad that I've had this barometer where, after 7 years or whatever, I was like, okay, I'm going to go do something really weird. I'm going to uproot my whole life and I'm going to move to London and go get another degree in my mid-30s and completely become a student again. Yeah, you have a skill of knowing when to get out of something and then finding something or taking a new journey. I do that with marriages too. Which,
It works, I guess. Hey, here's your philosophical. It's a nerdy one, but to be or not to be, that is the question. But the question to what?
You want me to really answer that?
How you answer? Because I don't know a whole lot of Shakespeare, but what is your
This is gonna be okay. Let me preface that. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
So we all did weird stuff during the pandemic. Some of us were making sourdough. Some of us were, watching Tiger King on loop, right? Tiger King?
Yeah. Yes, Tiger King.
And I was making kombucha and going to Joshua Tree, and then there was a moment where I was just like, you know what I've never done was, because earlier in my theater career in my 20s, again, I was cast as like the sidekick and the quirky character a lot of the time. I was never sort of the leading man, and I was like, I love Hamlet so much, and I feel like I really sort of identify with that child that misses their parent and sort of that darkness and that existential stuff that he, she, whatever is going through. And so I just cracked open the play during the pandemic and said, I want to memorize these speeches. I just want to like figure out these speeches. And that became a thing that now sticks with me. And so every 3 months, if I'm doing a workshop or whatever, or if I'm doing private coaching, oft times where I'm going like, you really have to internalize text in a way that makes sense for you. And you need to break the rules. You need to always break the rules. Art is the most wonderfully transgressive space that we can have, where rule breaking is encouraged. And we need to be able to preserve that transgressive nature to it. So, for me, it's like that question should be a question where it's somebody that's not predicting it. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, and you keep going and you let it be new ideas. And so what Hamlet's doing there is he's really, I don't think asking, do I live or do I die? But asking, what does it mean to live? And I think the parallel for that speech now that I find really interesting is people going like, should I zone out? Should I shut off? Should I numb out? Should I become comatose and just sort of like bury my head and be happy to pay my rent and mortgage? Or should I find some sort of life worth living?
To put in perspective, did you memorize the whole Hamlet?
I memorized 3 of the major speeches, and then I would do this thing where like I would just recite them in the shower. I would recite them on my runs, and they became a cool source of comfort when the world was going to shit, and we were all, no matter if you were in the Pacific Palisades or Compton, everybody was really worried where they were going to get toilet paper from at the same time. And I thought that was a really interesting, great equalizer. And so then to have these existential thoughts really made sense. And it's still a role that I think like I'd love to play it in my late 40s, in my 50s. I think for a person that has had opulence and sort of entitlement their entire life, as Hamlet does, to then have it all completely destroyed is so devastating and painful. And so for him to go through that and to ask, should I live a life worth living? Should I have a life that I can be proud of? I'll share this. This birthday, my 44th, which I've now said like 200 times on the podcast, is big because My idol Anton Chekhov died when he was 44, and my dad passed away when he was 44.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
so I had this birthday circled on the calendar for a bit, and I made a pact with the universe and said, if you keep me doggy paddling, if you keep me happy and healthy, and you let me know that I'm alive, then I promise I will take the baton and I will not succumb to the Dementors.
yeah.
They're in my wiring, and so I do feel like I'm beating the curse this year, and I have some shit to do. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I'm glad that you I mean, that's the way you went with it. That's what you do. You can either say I give up or here I go. And I'm glad that you chose the here I go, and I'll do something with this time. If you,
I
so
mean,
good for you.
it's so me too, to like put myself up against Anton Chekhov and go like, oh, it's fateful. It's like, it's so
No,
pretentious.
but it doesn't matter. Even if, yeah, well, yes, this is what I do.
And a musician goes like, I need to make it to 27.
Yeah.
I think that's just kind of those are the things you think about. Those are the questions. Those are your.
Totally. And I've struggled with depression and dark stuff my entire life. And, I used to say I lived 7 of my 9 cat lives, but I think I'm closer to 8 now. And so like the parallel, to kind of bring it full circle, is that what Hamlet is asking is like, should I live a life worth living? I've decided yes. And I've decided that the best way for me to do that is to, to lose myself and to keep being really curious and to love with no guarantee that it's going to be returned and to be wrong. My favorite sentences to say in the rehearsal room are, I don't know, and I think I'm wrong. Those are my favorite sentences to say. I love being able to create from nothing, and I love being able to give it away and not have it be about me, and I struggled my whole life trying to figure purpose and the definition of who I was. And my mom, bless her heart, she would say, even since I was a kid, we'd watch the Oscars and she'd say, Whit, when you win that, remember to thank me. And I don't necessarily care if that's in my cards. I really don't fucking care about awards, and adulation. But I think, when I told her what's happening and how things are kind of turning the corner, it's cool. I went to USC and I had an interview with one of their full-time faculty professors, who's also like a Chekhovian disciple and nerd. And he read my adaptations. And I didn't go in there with a tweed jacket and a tie. I went in there with a leather jacket and pins and tattoos and earrings. And he said, you did it. You did it. You took this dead playwright and you gave it new nerve endings. And I passed him my phone and I said, do you want to call my mom and tell her?
Yeah, that's awesome. Did he call her?
No, he didn't think I was serious. But I think that might be good enough. And for me,
for sure,
I do feel good enough. I feel good enough being in my studio, and it's not the life that I always planned to have, but I think it's better because I get to figure out who Whit is every day, and a lot of people are scared of doing that, and I'm not fucking scared anymore.
Yeah.
I had to get rid of that Mormonism, though. I had to get rid of that Mormonism.
You've overcome the fears.
Yeah. For a lot of people growing up with religion, or anything that you were taught forever. Those are really hard to free yourself from.
I mean, I'm glad that we didn't go down this road, but I have a rap sheet on that joint that is like very personal, that is like, for a while it was always like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna be one of those people that is, it's not for them, and I'll let it be for other people. But the insidiousness that happened personally, where there's what's the short version of this? The short version of this is like, we put it together that my dad was a closeted gay man, and although a very loving and interesting and exciting father, it wasn't the life that he really wanted. And
he was robbed of it.
And yeah, and why he took his life was because he had no way to explain who he was, to feel seen, and to live his truth, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And so I'm pissed that the church felt like it played a little bit of was complicit and to that sort of thinking. And so it's okay. Again, I don't fuck with anger, but I do think that, like, the more that we can start to develop our own personal, this is a huge soapbox, but our own personal spirituality, rather than relying upon what old white men have told us for centuries from books that may or may not be fairy tales. Like, let's get into the soil. Let's get into what actually reverberates, because then that's, I think, where we're going to find the saving grace, you know? And I think the grace comes from legitimately meeting who you are and liking that person. And I was never getting that through organized religion, ever.
Right. But yeah, they definitely don't want you to. It's harder to control those who have a sense of where their own journey is.
Free thinking has no place in organized religion.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
We went there. Yeah.
But the show always ends on a philosophical, and that got pretty philosophical.
Adrienne, you were going to say something.
I was just thinking you proved that you had said something earlier, like you're going to break the curse.
Yeah.
Maybe not those words, I'm paraphrasing, but you just proved that you already have. You already did. You did what your dad couldn't do. You've already done that. It's like the cycle is broken.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, cool.
And it had nothing to do with the number of which age you're turning, or will turn next year. So
no, it really didn't. And thank you for saying that. That's nice. That's lovely.
We can end with a little teary-eyed wrap up.
It's Whit Hertford, baby. We know there's been some crying.
Hey, how do you prefer people to stay on top of what's coming from the world of wit? Where do you like, what shall be promoted? What shall we?
I think Instagram probably is the quickest pipeline. My Riot Act Theatre Instagram is public, and I put all the stuff there. And
what's that at Riot Act?
Theater.
At Riot Act Theatre, THEARTRE. I'm pretty accessible, and you can probably email me through the theater company's website, which is riotacttheatre.org. I'm pretty easy to find.
Well, it was such a pleasure spending this afternoon with you, Whit. Thank you for joining us.
It was so great to see you.
I'm glad that things are on the up for you, and I look forward to having an opportunity to see you in a show. I guess we'll probably have to come out to see you.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I just, like I said, we're probably going to take this thing to New York, and then we'll probably take it to Edinburgh, which is bucket list.
For my own selfish reasons, will you please make both those happen? Because of New York and Edinburgh, because we tend to now, all our guests that have been on the show, a lot of them are musicians and artists. Like, now that they've been on the show, I go out of my way to support what they're doing. So we'll fly out to wherever to like go to one of their shows, or because just the fact that you're willing to sit and talk with us means a lot to us. So yeah, if you do those, for my own selfish reasons, that gives us a reason to go back out there and catch you at a show.
You guys are the best. You've always been purveyors and supportive, and you guys are very genuine in that way.
Well, thank you. I thank Joel for that too.
Same. Joel Huff forever.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
We love you, buddy.
Love you, pals. Bye, guys. Talk to you soon.
Peace.
Enters a room just like a hurricane, and everybody knows but can't pronounce her name. Dressed up in Betty.
Hey, it's me, Tai, just popping on real quick to let you know that my art is available for purchase at artbytai.com. So if you like what you're seeing or you want to support this podcast, the best way for you to do that is by picking up a print or an original on my website. If you're not quite ready for a purchase, but you still want to help out, go ahead and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you stream from. And be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you'll never miss an episode. All right, enough of all that. Now let's get back to the show. Well, there you go. That was Whit. It was a nice, heartfelt conversation, huh?
Yeah.
All right. That's
He's
okay.
He's always been a good guy.
Yeah, he's very thoughtful. He's very smart. And yeah, he knows so much about theater.
Yeah, I admittedly have no idea about, he didn't say Hamlet. Was it the one with the witches? I think I had to read it in
Hamlet's
high school.
the one where he does hold the skull and says to be or not to be.
Yeah, I think I had to
In
read
the
it in
old
high school, but
Well, admittedly, I'm not the biggest theater, but I love going to the
I'm
theater.
thinking that I should find it redone in a context that I can consume it. And
Well,
I should
didn't we
check it
go
out.
see him or Joel do Hamlet at a? I think that was.
Maybe.
Oh no! You know what? We saw the one where he was like Prometheus or something like that. It was a lot of witches and. Remember we?
Well, there is the one with the three witches, and I don't know. I didn't.
That's okay.
Shakespeare just confused me.
Me too.
It was too much Old English.
I remember watching Romeo and Juliet with my dad, who's this,
Yeah.
my dad, and he's like, well, I could see it in his head. He didn't speak much, but I could see in his head going like, what the fuck is this?
Well, at least that Romeo and Juliet made sense.
No, they were still speaking in that Shakespearean terminology. Well, we ran on for we went on a little long. No, not a little longer. No, it was nice to hear from Whit.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I'm glad that he's doing well. I'm glad
Me too.
he's dealt with the things that he's that have been going on in his mind, and that he's overcoming them, overcame them, whether he noticed that or not in life, is pushing on.
yeah. Would you attribute that to being an actor or a performer, where you do have to do a lot of introspective work? And do artists have to do more introspective work than non-artists? Because I tend to say that, I always hated calling myself an artist, but I obviously realize that I am. But do artists do more introspective work than people who don't?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, well, that's good. Well, yeah, I'm really happy for Whit, and he just sent a text saying thank you. So we'll wrap up here, and I'll reach out to him, tell him thank you. And I wanted to ask him why a bison, but oh well. He said he really likes Gothic architecture,
yeah.
and I wish I could have fit it on the screen, but oh well. That's the drawing.
It's on the screen.
I mean, I'm sorry. The rest of the what do you call the steeples? Are they steeples?
Spires, maybe.
Spires, yeah, because it went up a little taller. Because composition wise in this drawing, I want it to be just taller right here. But oh well. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and thanks, Adrienne, for keeping us on track. Anything else?
Oh, I was just pushing in.
Oh.
I thought that was it.
Did you push in?
No, I'm pushing in.
Well, that is it. Good night.
DOD45.
Thank you for joining in on yet another episode of DOD45. Please hit the subscribe or follow button so that you never miss an episode. You can even go one step further by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts to help other interesting people like yourself find our podcast. You can find me at Art by Tai on all the socials or at artbytai.com. If you'd like to follow this podcast on social media, we are at DOD45W on Instagram, or you can go over to our website, DOD45.com, where you can shoot us an email, join our mailing list, and watch all of our past episodes. Thanks for joining us. Peace.